Now, with Steve and Neil, did they get along? Were they friendly? Because that's always interesting, the guitarist singer dynamics there. What was their relationship like?
Like brothers, like siblings, and the such relationships, whether they're like siblings or whether they're actual siblings, have their ups and downs, as everyone knows who has a sibling, right? And it changes over time, depending on how we develop as individuals. That will affect the relationship. In the 1970s, Steve Perry was a hungry, starving artist, and Neal Schon was a very successful, even with Journey before Steve Perry. I mean, here's this guy who at age 15, 16 is working with a superstar band called Santana.
That's
And
amazing. Yeah, if we didn't mention that, he's just a
at that
kid.
age, right? And then after the original Santana breaks up and he leaves, and he doesn't leave with Greg Raleigh, they both leave and then eventually they come back together in Journey. During that year and a half, 2 year period between Santana and Journey, Neal Schon does not have a day when he doesn't have work. Right. He's with a band called Azteca with Coke Escovedo, Sheila E.'s father, and pretty much everybody wanted him in there as a session player. So he's living a 15-year-old's wet dream through his 20s. He really still is, actually. Now, has he turned 70? He's coming up on 70, I think, next year. If he hasn't turned, no, I think he did turn 70 last month. What does that do to you psychologically, right? To become famous and successful as a rock star at age 15, 16. In that sense, I feel sort of sad for Neal Schon, and I think Steve Perry probably does too, because it really does arrest his development, his maturity. You know, he doesn't have to go through a lot of the things, or at least he can ignore a lot of the emotional things that most of us have to go through in our teens and our 20s. And Steve Perry did have to go through all those things in his teens and 20s because he was a starving artist. He was not a rock star. Now, when Steve Perry becomes a rock star and is for a few years sort of overwhelmed by this rock star lifestyle, they mesh very well. Their relationship is really tight. They get each other on a very fundamental level. But over time, that's going to change because Steve Perry is going to come to realize, as he does on February 1st, 1987, when he walks off a Journey stage for the last time, when he realizes in a very mature move, which has made his fans incredibly sad for now 35 odd years, right? He walks off that stage for his own health and his own well-being, his emotional, his mental, his physical well-being. And Neal Schon never does that. Neal Schon does not seem to ever really have a reckoning moment where his maturity allows him to sort of look back on all of this and sort of make some moves that will help him for the better at that level, unfortunately, and really, really sadly. And they haven't really seen eye to eye since. They're in completely different places psychologically at this point. Steve Perry is a very mature 72, 73-year-old. I forget exactly how old he is, but he thinks really clearly about what is best for himself and for his loved ones. And he charts a course for his life, and he has for decades charted a course for his life that has helped him achieve that. And Neal Schon is not doing those
Mm.
things. And so Neal Schon doesn't even have Steve Perry's phone number. They talk through lawyers at this point because they're just so different. And I think they probably are. One way to put it is they're just speaking completely different languages.